The studio was silent, but not the kind of silence that signals peace. It was the kind of silence that crackles with anticipation, that hums with the weight of expectation. Michael Jackson sat at the piano, fingers hovering above the keys, eyes narrowing at a sheet of lyrics scribbled in his own meticulous handwriting. Every line, every pause, every word felt like it had been fought for, wrestled from the depths of his imagination. But still, something wasn't right. Across the room, Quincy Jones watched quietly. He didn't need to speak. The room itself seemed to pulse with his presence. When Quincy spoke, it wasn't just a comment, it was a verdict, a challenge, a spark capable of igniting genius or crushing it entirely. Michael had learned this long ago, yet no amount of experience could shield him from the moment that was about to unfold. This wasn't just another recording session. Not for MJ. Not when perfection was the only language he understood. Not when the world was waiting for something transcendent, something that would define an era. And Quincy, with his piercing gaze, held the power to make or break that vision with a single phrase. It was late, past midnight, but MJ hadn't noticed. Time had lost all meaning. The song sprawled across the keyboard, beautiful yet incomplete. A creature of melody and rhythm that refused to be tamed. Michael muttered under his breath, adjusting a note, shifting a chord, circling a line of lyrics again and again. Frustration tinged his voice, but it was controlled, restrained. A volcano of creativity simmering just beneath the surface. Then came the words. They weren't shouted, not commanding, not cruel. They were simple, precise, unyielding. "This isn't it," Quincy said. And just like that, the world tilted. Michael froze. He felt as though someone had taken the song out of his hands and held it up for inspection, exposing every imperfection, every hesitation, every fear he had buried under layers of self-belief. The weight of Quincy's statement wasn't criticism. It was a gauntlet thrown at the feet of a musical genius. One sentence, and the song he had poured himself into, the melody he had obsessed over, was suddenly unfinished in a way he could feel in his bones. The tension in the room was tangible. The air seemed to thrum with possibility and dread in equal measure. Was Michael about to crumble, or was he about to rise? Would the song survive this moment of judgment, or would it be torn apart and reborn from the ashes? That, the audience would soon discover, but not before witnessing a process that few had ever seen. A glimpse into the private, almost sacred world where art and obsession collide. As Quincy's gaze met Michael's, unspoken questions hung in the air. Can brilliance be critiqued? Can a masterpiece be perfected further? And most haunting of all, what exactly would MJ do next? Michael Jackson's pursuit of perfection was legendary. It wasn't merely about hitting the right note or executing a flawless dance move. It was about capturing something intangible, something the world didn't even know it needed. Each song was a universe unto itself, every lyric a carefully weighed artifact, every chord a heartbeat. And within that universe, there could be no compromises. Even in the quietest moments of the studio, you could sense it. Michael's internal dialogue was a relentless drum, pushing him, questioning him, demanding more. He had done this countless times before, yet each new song demanded a renewed vigilance. One misplaced syllable, one flawed rhythm, and the illusion of perfection would shatter. But it wasn't just MJ's standards that created tension. It was also the weight of the world pressing down on him. By the time he entered that studio, Michael wasn't just a singer. He was an icon, a symbol of artistry itself. The fans, the critics, the media, they all waited with bated breath, expecting magic. And Michael, ever sensitive to the world around him, carried that expectation like a mantle heavier than anyone could imagine. Quincy Jones understood this. He knew that Michael's brilliance was inseparable from his vulnerability, that his genius could be both fragile and unstoppable. And so Quincy's presence was both a shield and a sword. He protected MJ from mediocrity while cutting away anything that might compromise the art. It was in moments like these that the pressure became almost unbearable. Michael had to reconcile his obsession with perfection against the reality of human limitation. Every note mattered. Every word mattered. Every silence mattered. And when Quincy finally spoke, simple, decisive, unavoidable, the weight of judgment landed with a thud that Michael could feel in his chest. Could one sentence truly change the course of a song? Could a single comment from a producer, no matter how revered, unravel months of work? In that fragile silence, Michael understood that greatness demanded risk, that perfection demanded courage, and that sometimes the path to a masterpiece required destruction before creation. And yet, even as the doubt crept in, a spark ignited. Michael's obsession with excellence didn't falter, it sharpened. Quincy's words weren't just critique. They were a challenge, a provocation to reach higher, dig deeper, and confront the fear that maybe, just maybe, the song could be something far greater than he had imagined. The relationship between Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones was more than producer and artist. It was a delicate dance of respect, ego, trust, and challenge. They had collaborated before, creating songs that would define generations, yet the balance of their partnership was always in flux. Michael's visionary creativity often collided with Quincy's disciplined insistence on excellence, creating sparks, sometimes friction, sometimes brilliance. Quincy was never a passive observer. He listened with intent, noticing nuances that most would miss. He understood when a song needed subtle refinement and when it demanded radical transformation. His guidance was blunt, unwavering, and sometimes merciless, but always grounded in an unspoken belief in Michael's unparalleled talent. Michael, for his part, was acutely aware of this duality. Quincy could challenge him like no one else, and Michael both feared and craved it. In the studio, every suggestion carried weight. Every glance, every pause, every question was a test of judgment, intuition, and creative courage. Tonight, the tension was heightened. The song sprawled across the keyboard, notes hanging in the air like fragile glass. Michael played a sequence repeatedly, each iteration slightly different, each attempt seeking a perfection he could almost, but not quite, reach. Quincy's silence was deliberate, almost predatory, as if he were waiting for the exact moment when the music itself would reveal its flaws. And then, the words came, "This isn't it." Simple, precise, shocking. Michael stopped, fingers frozen on the keys. He felt the weight of that sentence as a physical force, pressing into the very core of his creative being. He had heard criticism before, constructive, gentle, even harsh. But nothing hit like this. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a verdict. The tension between them wasn't adversarial, it was intimate. It was the push and pull of two geniuses navigating the edge of possibility. Michael's mind raced. How much of the song would have to change? Would it survive? Could it become what it was meant to be? Or would it be discarded entirely, another casualty of his relentless pursuit of perfection? And yet, in that uncertainty, there was also possibility. Quincy's words didn't signal the end. They were the spark for transformation. Michael knew that to achieve greatness, to create a song that would resonate for decades, he had to risk everything, even the work he had already completed. As the room held its collective breath, Michael realized the truth. This was no ordinary night, no ordinary song. Something fundamental was about to shift. The question now wasn't whether the song would survive, but whether Michael Jackson himself could rise to the challenge that Quincy had just laid before him. The clock ticked. The piano waited. And in that charged silence, one thought echoed louder than any note. The next move could change music history forever. The song had started as a whisper, just a fragment of melody Michael had hummed into a tape recorder late at night. He carried it with him for weeks, letting it grow inside his mind, feeding it with rhythm and scraps of lyrics scribbled on napkins and notebooks. By the time it reached the studio, it had transformed into something full-bodied, pulsing with energy. To Michael, it felt alive, a creation that demanded care, demanded nurturing. Every time he sang it, the room seemed to shift, as though the song itself was calling out for recognition. He believed it had the bones of a masterpiece. But even as he worked tirelessly, layering harmonies, adjusting tempos, chasing sounds that only he could hear, there was a faint unease gnawing at the edges. He couldn't quite silence it. Something was missing. Something was hiding in the shadows of the melody. Michael hated that feeling. He was a man who thrived on clarity. When a song clicked, it was as though lightning struck, clean and undeniable. But this one, it lingered just out of reach, mocking him with its potential. Still, he pressed forward, determined to will it into existence. He rehearsed the verses until they seemed to carve themselves into his vocal cords. He shifted words around, chasing the perfect cadence, the elusive combination that would make the song soar. And yet, every iteration left him unsettled. He wasn't alone in sensing it. The musicians in the studio, though reverent of Michael's genius, exchanged quiet glances when his back was turned. They could feel it too. The song had power, but it wasn't finished. It wasn't ready. Michael, however, clung to it with the stubbornness of an artist in love with his creation. He believed in its promise, believed that one final push, one last refinement, would turn it into something unforgettable. Then came Quincy. To Michael, Quincy Jones was more than a producer. He was a mirror, unyielding, brutally honest, and impossibly wise. When Quincy listened, it wasn't with the ears of a fan or even a collaborator. He listened with the ears of history itself, filtering out ego and emotion until only the truth remained. That truth was ruthless. Michael played the song, pouring himself into every note, every syllable. He finished breathless, heart pounding, expecting silence to stretch long and heavy before Quincy responded. But Quincy didn't hesitate. He didn't soften the blow. His words landed sharp and final. This isn't it. The simplicity of it struck harder than any detailed critique could have. There was no debate, no negotiation, just a statement that cleaved the air in two. Michael blinked, stunned. For a moment, he thought he'd misheard. The song he had nurtured, defended, agonized over, dismissed with 3 words. The musicians looked down at their instruments. The engineer stared at the soundboard. No one dared to speak. Michael's mind spiraled. Was Quincy wrong? Could Quincy be wrong? Or was this the brutal honesty he both dreaded and depended on? The truth was unavoidable. Quincy was rarely wrong. The question clawed at Michael's thoughts. If this wasn't it, then what was? What would it take to elevate the song from promising to timeless? That silence between them stretched, unbearable. And in that silence, Michael felt the fragile confidence he'd built around the song begin to fracture. But fracture was not the same as collapse. Sometimes, breaking was the only way to rebuild. As Quincy's words lingered, Michael felt the weight of a decision settling onto his shoulders. Would he cling to his vision and risk mediocrity? Or would he take a leap into the unknown, tearing apart what he loved in search of what it could become? The studio waited for his answer. Michael sat in stillness, Quincy's words echoing like a drumbeat inside his skull. This isn't it, he wanted to argue, to defend what he had poured himself into. He wanted to insist that the song had everything it needed, that the rhythm was infectious, the melody strong, the lyrics heartfelt. But deep down, beneath the layers of pride and exhaustion, he knew the truth. The song wasn't ready. Michael lowered his eyes to the sheet of lyrics in front of him. The lines he had written with such conviction now seemed flimsy, fragile. His pen hovered above the page, as if poised to either defend them or destroy them. Quincy didn't press him. He didn't need to. The silence was enough. His presence, calm and immovable, was a reminder that true genius couldn't hide behind good intentions or near misses. It demanded courage. It demanded honesty. Michael's heart pounded. This was the moment every artist dreads, the moment when you realize that what you have isn't enough. And yet it was also the moment that defined the difference between the ordinary and the legendary. He thought back to the first time he and Quincy had worked together, the long nights of tension and breakthrough, the times when Quincy's blunt words had cut deep but always led him to something greater. Quincy's honesty wasn't cruelty, it was faith. It was a belief that Michael could push past even his own towering standards. With a shaky breath, Michael picked up the pen. Slowly, deliberately, he drew a line through an entire verse. The scratch of ink on paper was louder than thunder in that room. The musicians shifted, sensing a storm gathering. Michael wasn't rewriting a lyric. He was tearing down a wall. Every strike of the pen was an admission. This can be better. This must be better. Quincy nodded just once. Approval without words. Michael rose from the piano bench and began pacing the studio. He hummed fragments, discarded them, tried new ones, discarded those too. His voice was low, almost a growl, then suddenly light, almost a whisper. His body moved with the rhythm of discovery, every step chasing an idea just out of reach. The hours blurred. Midnight bled into dawn, and still Michael worked. Sheets of paper littered the floor, crumpled remnants of ideas born and abandoned. The musicians watched as he pushed himself further, past exhaustion, into a realm where obsession and inspiration collided. Then it happened. Michael stopped, eyes wide, breath sharp. He sang a line, simple, unexpected, perfect. The room stilled. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Quincy's face broke into a rare smile. There it was. The spark. The missing piece. The note that shifted everything. Michael felt it instantly, a rush of energy flooding through him. The song was alive again, transformed, stronger than before. What had once been flawed was now radiant, pulsing with the unmistakable fire of something destined for greatness. But this was only the beginning. That single breakthrough opened the door, but the rest of the journey lay ahead. The song would demand more rewrites, more battles, more sleepless nights. And yet, in that moment, Michael knew the truth. Quincy had been right. Sometimes, the bravest act an artist can take is to let go of what they love and start again. And as Michael looked across the room at Quincy, their eyes locked in a silent pact. This song would not just be good. It would not just be great. It would be unforgettable. But at what cost? Michael Jackson sat back in the studio chair, the pen in his hand trembling slightly, the remnants of the old lyrics scattered like fragments of a world he had once built. The silence of the room felt heavy now, charged with anticipation. He wasn't just rewriting a song, he was dismantling a piece of himself. Every note, every syllable he had loved was being questioned, every rhythm scrutinized, every harmony held up to the unrelenting standard that Quincy had demanded. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and let go. This was the moment every artist fears, the moment when creation and destruction intersect. Michael began to hum, letting the melody guide him rather than trying to force perfection from memory or habit. Each hum, each whispered lyric was an experiment, a probe into the unknown. Some sounded promising. Others fell flat, collapsing into the shadows of doubt. Hours passed like minutes. The musicians watched in awe as Michael moved from piano to vocal exercises, his body swaying, head bobbing, fingers tapping rhythms on the floor. He sang softly at first, almost a murmur, then louder, more insistent, chasing a sound that felt just beyond reach. Quincy remained present, but unobtrusive. A quiet force, a constant reminder that brilliance demanded courage. When Michael stumbled, Quincy offered a word, a glance, or even silence, each gesture shaping the process more powerfully than 1,000 rehearsals could. And then came the first breakthrough. Michael struck a chord and hesitated, listening intently as the note reverberated through the studio. It wasn't perfect, not yet, but it carried the spark of possibility. He scribbled a lyric, crossed out another, and began piecing together the melody again. Each iteration felt like chiseling marble, sculpting something invisible into form. The room seemed to pulse with energy. Every discarded lyric, every wrong note, every moment of doubt had led to this, an opening, a glimpse of the masterpiece waiting to emerge. Yet, for all the progress, the song remained unfinished. The edges were rough, the rhythm inconsistent, and the melody fragile. Michael's obsession flared. Frustration gnawed at him. Could he make it whole? Could he rise to the challenge Quincy had set? The musicians exchanged worried glances. They had witnessed MJ in the throes of creativity before, but this was different. The stakes felt higher, the tension almost unbearable. Michael had to transcend not just the song, but his own expectations. And as the clock ticked past midnight, it became painfully clear the next hours would define the difference between a great song and a legendary one. Every note he played, every lyric he rewrote, carried the weight of possibility and peril. The audience waiting outside would never understand the torment, the risk, The sheer courage required to tear down a song you loved in order to create one the world would never forget. And yet, Michael pressed on, driven by a fire only he could feel. Guided by Quincy's unwavering presence, the first steps of the rewrite were complete, but they were only the beginning. The real test was yet to come. As the first sparks of the rewritten song began to take shape, Michael encountered obstacles he hadn't anticipated. Musical genius often comes with a price, and tonight that price would be tested in every note, every rhythm, every breath. The first challenge came in the melody itself. The original lines had a natural flow, a comfort born of familiarity. But the rewritten verses demanded novelty, unpredictability. Michael tried over and over, experimenting with key changes, tempo shifts, and vocal runs. Each attempt exposed new weaknesses, a phrase that jarred, a chord that felt hollow, a lyric that didn't land. Frustration grew. Michael paced the studio, muttering under his breath, striking the piano keys in sharp bursts, then flinching at the sound. The musicians tried to adapt, but even they felt the tension. Every beat, every note seemed to teeter on the edge of perfection and disaster. Then came the instrumentation. Layers of drums, bass, synth, and percussion were re-recorded, each pass revealing new problems. Michael demanded clarity and punch without sacrificing subtlety. Quincy's eyes narrowed as he listened, sometimes nodding, sometimes shaking his head. He knew that achieving brilliance required that painstaking balance, the difference between a song that was merely good and one that would change everything. The biggest challenge, however, was Michael himself. His perfectionism, usually a source of strength, became a double-edged sword. He critiqued every note, dissected every phrase, and pushed himself to the edge of exhaustion. The studio became a battlefield of creativity, a war between inspiration and doubt, and Michael was both the soldier and the general. Yet, even in the frustration, there were moments of clarity. He would sing a line, stop mid-breath, and suddenly realize a subtle shift could make the song soar. He experimented with vocal inflections, timing, and harmonies, testing the limits of his own voice. Each small victory fueled him, each setback challenged him to dig deeper. Quincy watched closely, offering guidance but rarely interference. When he did speak, it was with the precision of a surgeon. Try it slower. Hold that note longer. Don't force the melody. Let it come. His words were few but devastatingly effective, steering Michael without diminishing the artist's own instinct. The tension in the studio became almost tangible. Sweat dripped, fingers ached, voices cracked, but no one stopped. There was an unspoken understanding. This song was worth every battle, every sleepless hour. Failure wasn't an option. And then, in the middle of a particularly grueling run-through, disaster struck. A chord progression Michael had painstakingly arranged fell flat. The rhythm section struggled to find cohesion. Even the lyrics, carefully rewritten, refused to settle. The room fell silent. The air felt heavy, suffocating. For a moment, doubt crept in like a shadow. Could the song survive? Could Michael overcome the obstacles he had created for himself in the pursuit of perfection? Would the breakthrough he glimpsed earlier vanish, leaving only frustration and exhaustion? But Michael's instinct, honed through years of relentless creativity, refused to give in. He closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and began again. The piano keys felt familiar beneath his fingers, but his mind was searching for something new, something daring, something the world had never heard. Slowly, the breakthrough began to re-emerge. A subtle shift in rhythm here, a change in melody there, a perfect inflection in the vocal line, and the song began to breathe again. The tension didn't vanish, but it evolved, transforming into anticipation, excitement, and the thrill of possibility. The musicians felt it too. Even Quincy's usually inscrutable expression softened, a glimmer of pride appearing as the song slowly began to reach toward its true form. But even as hope surged, one question lingered, impossible to ignore. Could Michael sustain this momentum? Could he push through the exhaustion, the doubt, and the relentless demands of his own genius to transform this song into something the world would never forget? The answer would come only in the hours ahead. As Michael Jackson ventured deeper into the crucible of creation, armed with nothing but talent, obsession, and the unyielding challenge Quincy Jones had placed before him. Michael Jackson sat at the piano, exhausted, body aching, mind buzzing. The night had stretched long past midnight, but time had dissolved into irrelevance. Every note he had sung, every lyric he had rewritten, every chord he had struck, it had all led to this fragile, trembling moment of possibility. He tried again, humming, letting the melody find its path naturally, untethered from the past versions he had obsessively tweaked. And then it happened. A phrase emerged from the piano keys, soft at first, almost hesitant. He sang it, listening intently as the sound resonated through the studio. The words aligned with the rhythm in a way that was effortless yet electrifying. Michael stopped mid-phrase, breath-catching. His heart pounded as he realized he had stumbled upon something extraordinary. It wasn't just a line of lyrics or a chord progression. It was the essence of the song itself, finally taking shape, finally finding its voice. Every prior frustration, every discarded page of lyrics, every grueling run-through suddenly made sense. The struggle had been necessary. The obstacles had been guides, leading him to this perfect confluence of melody, rhythm, and emotion. The musicians watched, wide-eyed as Michael repeated the line, each time with more confidence, more clarity. The song was alive again, stronger, sharper, richer than it had ever been. The piano keys under his fingers vibrated with newfound energy, and even the air seemed to pulse with anticipation. Quincy Jones, who had remained a calm, steady presence throughout the chaos, finally allowed a small smile to escape. It wasn't a smile of relief. It was the recognition of genius realized, a rare acknowledgement that the storm of creativity had yielded brilliance. Michael's excitement was tempered by exhaustion. He knew this breakthrough was only the beginning. There were still sections to refine, harmonies to perfect, lyrics to polish. But for the first time in hours, he felt that rare, almost sacred thrill. The song had transcended effort and struggle and become something greater than he had imagined. He leaned back, closing his eyes, and let the music wash over him. Every moment of doubt, every pang of frustration, every sleepless night, it had all led to this. He could feel the energy of the song coursing through the studio, through his body, through his very soul. But as exhilarated as he was, Michael knew that nothing could be taken for granted. One false note, one misplaced lyric, and the fragile magic could vanish. The breakthrough was intoxicating, but also fragile. And then came the lingering, unspoken question, heavier than any challenge he had faced so far. Could he sustain this level of perfection? Could he carry this song from a brilliant idea to a legendary masterpiece? The answer would define not just the song, but the very limits of his artistry. And as Michael prepared to dive back into the meticulous work ahead, the room felt electric with possibility, a tension that whispered greatness was within reach, but it would demand everything he had left to give. The studio fell silent for a moment, the kind of silence that carries the weight of revelation. Michael Jackson leaned back, sweat-dampened hair clinging to his forehead, chest heaving. Around him, the scattered sheets of lyrics and crumpled drafts told the story of a battle fought in the shadows of genius. Quincy Jones sat nearby, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But the faintest twitch of a smile betrayed his satisfaction. He had witnessed something rare, something almost mythical, the moment when sheer talent, relentless obsession, and fearless honesty converge to create art that defies expectation. Michael reflected on the journey of the night, the tumultuous dance between frustration and inspiration. He thought of the countless discarded lyrics, the melodies that had failed to take flight, the moments when he had questioned his own vision. And yet, every failure had been necessary. Each obstacle, a stepping stone toward the eventual breakthrough. The song, now taking its final shape, was not merely a collection of notes or words. It was a testament to the process itself, a story of perseverance, courage, and collaboration. The audience would hear the polished result, feel its power, but they would never truly know the struggle, the unyielding demand for perfection that had birthed it. Michael's eyes met Quincy's, and in that brief glance, a silent understanding passed between them. It was more than mentorship, more than collaboration. It was recognition. Recognition of dedication, of sacrifice, of the willingness to face discomfort and uncertainty in pursuit of something transcendent. He thought back to the moment when Quincy had first said, "This isn't it." Those words, so simple and yet so devastating, had been the catalyst. They had forced him to confront his own limitations, to tear apart what he loved in search of what it could truly become. Without that moment, the song might never have reached its full potential. And yet the experience had also reminded him of something deeper, that even the greatest artists are never finished. There is always a horizon just beyond reach, a challenge waiting to test the limits of imagination and skill. The pursuit of excellence is endless, a journey rather than a destination. Michael felt a renewed sense of respect for the collaborative process. Quincy's honesty, unwavering yet gentle, had shaped the song in ways that his own obsession alone could not have achieved. He understood now that true greatness often requires a partner who can see through the illusion of perfection, someone who can demand the courage to rebuild, to reinvent, to start over without fear. The musicians quietly packed away their instruments, leaving Michael alone with the piano once more. The breakthrough was not an end, it was a beginning. There were still refinements to make, harmonies to adjust, and nuances to perfect. But the foundation was solid, radiant, almost untouchable in its brilliance. Michael's reflection turned inward. He realized that moments like these, rare and precious, defined the essence of artistry. They were the points at which talent met vision, discipline met inspiration, and human limitation collided with the infinite possibilities of creativity. And they were the moments that separated the good from the legendary, the ordinary from the timeless. As he pressed a final chord, letting it linger in the quiet studio, Michael understood the weight of what had been achieved. This song, born of struggle, shaped by honesty, and refined through relentless effort, would leave a mark not only on his career but on the world of music itself. But even as triumph settled in, an echo of tension remained. The process had been grueling, the stakes immense, and the next steps were still uncertain. Could he maintain this standard? Could he continue to surpass himself with every song, every performance, every note? For Michael Jackson, the answer would always lie in the pursuit, in the relentless drive to perfect, to innovate, to create what no one else could. And in that pursuit, guided by voices like Quincy Jones, greatness was not just a possibility, it was inevitable. And yet, for all its brilliance, the story was far from over. There were more battles to face, more songs to transform, and more moments of truth to encounter. The night's triumph was only one chapter in the ongoing saga of genius, ambition, and the relentless quest for perfection. The song, once a fragment of Michael Jackson's restless imagination, had transformed into something extraordinary. It was no longer just a creation. It had become a statement, a declaration of what happens when relentless ambition meets unflinching honesty. When the world finally heard it, they didn't just hear a song, they felt it. Critics lauded its complexity, its subtle layers, its emotional depth. Fans could sense the pulse of passion, the electricity that only comes from music born of struggle. Yet few understood the unseen battles behind every chord, every phrase, every heartbeat of the track. Few could comprehend the nights spent in isolation, the moments of doubt, the crumpled sheets of lyrics that never saw the light of day. Michael's friends in the industry, those who had witnessed the creation firsthand, spoke of it in hushed reverence. This song wasn't merely successful, it was revolutionary. It pushed boundaries, challenged conventions, and reminded the world why Michael Jackson was not just an artist, but a phenomenon. Quincy Jones, ever the silent guide, understood its significance even more deeply. That single phrase he had uttered months earlier, "This isn't it," had catalyzed the transformation. Without it, the song might have been good, perhaps even great. But with it, the song became immortal. It carried the mark of sacrifice, of courage, of the willingness to confront imperfection and remake it into brilliance. And yet, despite the accolades, the song's true value was not in charts or awards. Its legacy lay in the process itself, the story of creativity, risk, and collaboration. Every artist who heard it, consciously or not, felt the gravity of that story. The triumph of the song was inseparable from the trials that produced it. For Michael, this was a rare moment of reflection. He understood that music, like life, was defined not only by the final product, but by the courage to confront the imperfect, to tear down what is comfortable, and to rebuild it into something transcendent. He remembered the tension, the sleepless nights, the frustration, and the exhilaration, and he realized that these moments were the true currency of greatness. The song would be remembered, not just for its melody or rhythm, but for the audacity of the artist who refused to settle. It became a symbol, a testament to the power of critique, of guidance, and of unyielding determination. Michael had learned that perfection was not a destination, but a process, a journey of destruction, creation, and ultimate triumph. Yet, as the accolades rolled in and fans celebrated, a quiet question lingered in the studio where it all began. Could he push himself even further? Could the next song surpass even this moment of brilliance? The audience might never know. But Michael did. And in that quiet understanding, the seed of the next challenge was already planted. The story of this song, born from frustration and reshaped by truth, had changed the course of Michael Jackson's career. And as the night drew on, the weight of its legacy hung in the air, an invisible reminder that greatness is never given. It is earned, relentlessly, over and over again. But before the full impact of the song's brilliance could be felt by the world, another truth loomed over the studio. The highest stakes were yet to come. Michael Jackson had rewritten a masterpiece, yet the process had exposed vulnerabilities, pushed limits, and demanded sacrifices that few could comprehend. The final version of the song was not merely a product, it was a confrontation with his own limits, a test of endurance, creativity, and genius. As the last sections of the song came together, Michael could feel the pressure mounting. The melodies were there, the lyrics refined, the harmonies perfect, or as perfect as human hands and human ears could make them. But something still lingered in the air, an almost imperceptible tension. The song was brilliant, but could it survive the scrutiny of the world? Could it carry the weight of expectations that Michael had spent years building? Quincy Jones sensed it too. He knew the difference between a song that dazzled in the studio and one that transformed history. The smallest misstep could undermine months of work, while the slightest nuance could elevate it into immortality. And Michael, already on the edge of exhaustion, had to navigate this final crucible with nothing but instinct, talent, and sheer determination. The studio felt alive, almost sentient, as Michael rehearsed the song one last time. His voice, though tired, was sharper than ever, carrying emotion that transcended technical perfection. Every note, every pause, every subtle inflection was intentional, calculated, yet natural. A paradox of mastery that only he could achieve. Then came the critical moment, a section of the song that had resisted perfection from the beginning. The rhythm stumbled, the lyrics threatened to fall apart, and the harmonies teetered on chaos. Michael's heart raced. This was it, the ultimate test of everything he had fought for. Could he bring it together, or would this final obstacle fracture the masterpiece? He paused, letting silence fill the room. The tension was suffocating. Quincy, who had guided him through every trial, finally leaned forward, voice low but firm. Trust it. Let it breathe. Let it be what it wants to be. Those words, simple yet profound, carried the weight of experience, wisdom, and faith. Michael inhaled deeply, letting go of control, releasing the perfectionism that had both driven him and tormented him. He sang again, this time with abandon, with trust, with the fearless joy of creation unshackled. The notes aligned. The lyrics flowed. The melody soared. Every element, once fragile, now converged in a moment of pure, unadulterated brilliance. The studio seemed to hum, almost vibrating with energy. It was no longer just a song. It was a living entity, a force that demanded recognition. A moment of genius that would not be forgotten. Michael's breath came fast, his body trembling, but there was a profound calm beneath the exhilaration. He had faced doubt, frustration, exhaustion, and imperfection, and emerged victorious. The song was complete, transformed, transcendent. Quincy exhaled, nodding slowly, a rare and unmistakable gesture of approval. Michael met his gaze, and in that silent exchange, the truth was undeniable. They had done more than create a song. They had confronted the impossible, challenged the limits of art and human capacity, and emerged with something legendary. Yet even in triumph, a whisper of suspense remained. Could the world feel what had been forged in that crucible? Would listeners sense the struggle, the obsession, the relentless pursuit of perfection that had birthed this song? Could a single moment in a studio guided by one sentence truly resonate across the globe and echo through history? The answer would come soon enough. But in that charged silence, the stakes had never felt higher. Michael Jackson had rewritten not just a song, but the very rules of creation. And the climax of this journey, the moment when art met genius, struggle met breakthrough, and vision met truth, was a story the world was only beginning to hear. And as he played the final chord, letting it hang in the air like a heartbeat, the studio held its breath. Every note was a question, every pause a challenge, every lyric a promise. Greatness had been forged, but the legacy of this night, and the echo of Quincy's single transformative words, would ripple far beyond the studio walls, leaving the world to wonder what comes next when an artist refuses to settle. Michael Jackson's hands hovered over the piano, trembling slightly from exhaustion and exhilaration. The breakthrough he had fought for, the song he had dissected, rebuilt, and reshaped countless times, was now whole, or as whole as human hands and mind could make it. But the moment demanded more than technical perfection. It demanded surrender. He inhaled deeply, letting go of every expectation, every fear of imperfection, every shadow of doubt. For hours he had chased the elusive heartbeat of the song, and now, in the quiet, electric tension of the studio, it revealed itself fully. Every note, every phrase, every harmonic nuance aligned in a moment of unspoken brilliance. The musicians held their breath, feeling the pulse of creation radiate outward. Even Quincy Jones, who had guided him with the precision of a master craftsman, allowed a rare, silent awe to appear on his face. This was more than music. It was history being written in real time. Michael's voice soared over the piano, carrying not just melody, but emotion, narrative, and triumph. Each word was deliberate, each pause weighted with the gravity of creation. The song was no longer just a product of talent. It was a testament to struggle, courage, and relentless pursuit. And yet, for all its brilliance, the studio held its suspense. Could this fragile alignment survive the test of perfection? Could Michael sustain the song's intensity across every take, every note, every vocal inflection? It was the final unforgiving trial, the ultimate proof of mastery. Then, in a single, breathtaking moment, it clicked. The rhythm, the lyrics, the melody, they converged flawlessly. Michael's voice, resonant and fearless, carried the song into its destiny. The tension, once palpable, transformed into a triumphant exhale. The breakthrough was complete. Quincy leaned back, expression inscrutable for a heartbeat, before finally breaking into a subtle nod, a silent confirmation that the impossible had been achieved. The musicians exhaled. The air, charged for hours, finally seemed to settle, vibrating gently with the residual energy of genius realized. Yet even in triumph, a quiet edge of suspense lingered. Michael Jackson had conquered the song, but the world had not yet heard it. Would audiences feel the struggle, the transformation, the heartbreak that birthed this masterpiece? Could a single song, forged in tension and refined in fire, resonate with a global audience and redefine expectations? Michael's mind raced. This was more than a personal victory. It was a challenge to every listener, every musician, every artist who dared to push beyond comfort. The song, born from critique and relentless effort, was now a message. Greatness is never given. It is earned in moments of doubt, obsession, and fearless reinvention. The piano's final chord hung in the air like a heartbeat, Michael let it linger, savoring the resonance, the victory, and the proof that persistence, courage, and artistry could overcome any obstacle. But even in this perfection, there remained a whisper of uncertainty. Could he maintain this standard, this level of brilliance in every song to follow? For now, though, the answer was clear. The breakthrough, the rewrite, the tension. It had all led to this. And the echo of Quincy Jones' words, "This isn't it," had guided him, challenged him, and ultimately elevated him into a realm few artists ever reach. As dawn crept across the studio, casting long shadows over the scattered sheets of lyrics and empty coffee cups, Michael Jackson sat back, finally allowing himself a moment to breathe. Exhaustion weighed on his body, but his mind was electric, alive with the satisfaction of a challenge met, a masterpiece realized. He reflected on the journey, the frustration, the doubt, the countless iterations of melody and lyric, the moments when perfection seemed just out of reach. He remembered Quincy's words, sharp and unwavering, and understood their true power. They had not been criticism. They had been a mirror, reflecting both limitation and potential, and forcing him to confront what was necessary to achieve greatness. The song, now complete, was more than a composition. It was a testament to perseverance, to the courage to dismantle what you love in pursuit of what it can truly become. Each note carried the weight of countless trials, each lyric the imprint of sleepless nights and relentless dedication. It was music born not just from talent, but from obsession, humility, and fearless honesty. Michael looked around the studio, seeing not just instruments and scattered papers, but the essence of creation itself. The musicians, silent now, understood the gravity of what had been achieved. Quincy's presence, calm and authoritative, had been both anchor and catalyst. Without him, the song might have been good. With him, it was transcendent, and yet the journey did not end here. The legacy of this song, the impact it would have on listeners, and the influence it would carry across generations, was only beginning. Michael understood that art, once released into the world, takes on a life of its own, far beyond the confines of the studio. The struggle, the doubt, the rewriting, it would remain hidden. But the resonance would be felt universally. He thought of every artist who would listen, every fan who would experience the song, and every critic who would dissect it. The emotional weight, the tension, the perfection, none of it could be fully communicated, yet it would be unmistakable in its brilliance. And in that, Michael found a profound sense of fulfillment. Yet even in reflection, there was a lingering echo, the reminder that true greatness is never final. Each song, each performance, each moment of creation demands courage, risk, and the willingness to confront imperfection. Michael Jackson had faced that challenge tonight and had emerged victorious, but he knew it would be called upon again. In every note he sang, in every melody he composed, the studio, now quiet, held a sacred energy. It was a space where obsession met talent, where doubt met perseverance, where critique met genius. And within that space, Michael had proven something timeless, that the pursuit of perfection, guided by honesty and unflinching dedication, can transform even the most elusive vision into enduring brilliance. He pressed the final chord one more time, letting it hang in the air, resonating like a heartbeat across the empty studio. It was a sound of triumph, of completion, of quiet reverence. It was also a promise of more songs to come, more risks to take, and more moments where artistry and courage would collide in pursuit of greatness. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the room, Michael Jackson understood something essential. The true magic of creation lies not in immediate recognition or applause, but in the relentless, often unseen journey from doubt to brilliance. The song was no longer just his. It belonged to the world, a testament to the transformative power of vision, courage, and the guidance of a mentor who dared to challenge the impossible. In the end, the story was not just about a song. It was about the artist who refused to settle, the mentor who demanded honesty, and the delicate alchemy that turns struggle into immortality. Michael Jackson had rewritten more than a song tonight. He had rewritten the rules of what is possible, leaving a legacy that would inspire generations to come. The studio fell silent once more, but the echo of the music, the echo of the struggle, and the echo of Quincy Jones's transformative words lingered. They would resonate far beyond this room, far beyond the recording, far beyond the fleeting moments of fame. This was the true reward, not applause, not accolades, but the enduring power of creation itself. And with that, Michael Jackson leaned back, eyes closed, heart full, knowing that greatness had been achieved and that the next challenge awaited just beyond the horizon.